Welcome back to Venus Improbable Dream. We're probably pretty close now to the end of the game. It doesn't matter how long this is going to take, this will be the last episode on this game. Sometimes it's an internal thing where the only thing you can do is just be by them to support them. I accept, but I can't really help her if she doesn't want to talk about whatever it is, so in a way I should just leave her to her own devices, although I still feel a bit unsatisfied about it. Putting my attention back to the room, I take note of the time of the clock, which tells me that class is about to be over. Hopefully Haruka will be more settled during our club session. I pack my things away, waiting to be excused. The queue I'm expecting arrives, and I stop immediately. However, before I can get very far, my path becomes suddenly blocked by two people. Ah, it must be two of the girls who helped Kakeru from before. Glanced up jerkily, I'm freezing shock. Nothing of this has happened since that ridiculous rumour went around roughly a month ago about Haruka and I dating, and that's more than over by now. What someone could want with me now, I've no idea. But I try to avert my eyes. I fight the urge long enough to steal a brief glance at whoever has approached me. I see that there's two girls who sat close to the front of the class, whom I've never spoken to, but I have noticed occasionally. Yes, exactly. Two of the girls who tried to help Haruka after she got knocked down this lunchtime, with that extra sense of familiarity. I don't really pay attention to whether I'd known any of them or not at the time, more focused on getting Haruka out of there, but now that I think about it, these two girls had been there, attempting to dust her off and ask if she'd been hurt. The fact caused me to feel somewhat apologetic towards them, knowing how gracelessly we left them behind. But before I can think of anything to say, the girl who called my name continues. We were just wondering, is Fujiwara okay? She looked like she fell really bad. Yeah, I felt sorry for her. Those guys are total jerks, just leaving her there like that. Indeed, they are jerks. And that's putting it lightly. The second girl speaks with a tangible amount of malice in her voice, and a friend looks at her, nodding vigorously. I know, right? They've always been a pair of jackasses, but that was horrible. That was one step too far. Or many steps too far. As the two of them eye each other with firm agreement, I started to feel a sense of appreciation rising up within me, along my jitters. It had been nice to try to help Haruka if the situation had first happened, but the fact that they are condemning the boys as strongly as I do suggests that they're genuinely concerned for Haruka's well-being. Due to the fact I haven't said anything, they fix their gazes back onto me, although they seem slightly awkward about our conversation. So yeah, we didn't mean to bother you or anything, but is she okay? She didn't get injured, did she? It takes me a second to realise the truth behind their slightly timid approach, but it does occur to me that they have been awkward because they know that I don't like being talked to, and possibly feel guilty for questioning me like this. It seems like they're pretty thoughtful and considerate girls, trying to summon some courage, and based on that I do my best, to raise my head and look at them in the face somewhat as I answer. Think she's okay? Both girls nod. Their relief becoming clearer as their expressions change. Oh, thank God. I was worried about her. Me too. Well, that's great. Can you tell her that we're glad that she's alright? Appreciating the thought, I nod diligently, figuring that Haruka might feel somewhat supported by the fact that they've asked after her. Cool, thanks. They glance at each other, communicating slightly, and seem to be about to leave me alone. Though I'm be glad to let them go, there's also one more thing that I think they should probably hear from me, despite my shyness. They hold just as they're turning to leave, looking back at me curiously, and I'll take a breath before I continue. She says thanks for helping. She was just really scared before. I splutter the words out and watch as the girls share a pleased look, and they smile at me as I nod. That's okay. We're just glad she's not hurt. Yeah, she doesn't need to worry about it. In spite of myself, I return the smile as best as I can, slightly comforted by their kindness. Thanks, Akane. See you. You see, there are nice guys out there. We're not all total jerks. Or a lot of us are not total jerks at all, or even a jerk for that matter. With that, they turn on their heels and exit the room, leaving me dumbfounded and feeling very strange but oddly grateful for what just happened. There are males that are jerks, and there are females that are jerks. Just one is just more visible than the other. It serves as another reminder that there are nice people at this school. Despite those rude boys earlier, I guess I should keep trying to remember that when things feel overwhelming. Coming back into the moment and realised I should get moving and head on to our club session, I continued on my way, leaving the classroom behind. At least the time that we spend in the toilets is no longer needed. Kakeru, you naughty boy. Even just thinking that caused me to internally jump at my own intuitions, shocked by the suggestion that I want to get physical attention from Haruka. That's not what I meant at all. Of course it's not. Of course it's not. It's more a case of having hugged someone for the first time in forever. When I ignore the fact that my head had been spinning the whole time, it had felt sort of nice. I'm not exactly going to be scooping and hugging her every... Yeah, exactly. That would be very uncomfortable. But, oh man, this is embarrassing to ever think about, but I guess I kind of like that it happened. But the reason for it happening is a no-go. I mean, you don't want your friend to be tumbled down every time just because you want them to hug you. Retrieving my sheet music from my bag, I turned to the beginning of Venus and placed the book on the piano stand. After yesterday's drama, I'm so relieved that today has been pretty normal in comparison. During our last club session, I told Haruka what those girls had said, and she'd been taken aback at how nice they'd been indeed. Of course, she still felt guilty for not thanking them herself, but I reminded her that they really hadn't been offended at all. Also, I checked in with her again about any potential injuries from before, but the pain in her shoulder has started to subside, so I feel a little better about it. Yes, because when holding a flute, the shoulder, I imagine, is one of the most important parts of maintaining your hold of a flute. She'll probably have a few bruises, but luckily nothing more than that, it seems. 24 hours later, here we are about to start practice and things seem quite a bit calmer. I looked at Haruka, who fiddles with a flute for a moment, before considering me thoughtfully. Do you mind just playing through your parts before we play together? I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing in the middle section. Okie dokie. Sure, she nods gratefully, and I put my attention onto the keys in front of me, feeling a little strange about playing by myself. Yeah, it's going to feel off sync in a way. I go through each section as best I can, and it feels odd without her parts to refer to, but I manage it relatively well. I bring the piece to a halt looking back up at her, and bracing for some sort of criticism. I don't think I really did anything wrong, but I guess I sort of expect it, knowing my uncertainty. Oh yeah, that's good. Am I sounding okay? Did I do anything badly? No, I think it was pretty steady, to be honest. You're getting good at it now. I have an embarrassment. Thanks. Shall we do a proper run-through now? Instead of jumping at the chance that I can anticipate, she averts her eyes, growing a little indecisive for a moment, then looks back up at me. Could you maybe just play it one more time? What are we getting at here, Haruka? I'm surprised at her lack of confidence, as she's usually the one leading these sessions, rather than taking the backseat to watch me play. However, wants to help her out with whatever she's trying to clarify. I go along with it, playing through the piece again. When I finish, she nods pensively. Yeah, your dynamics at the end are getting better, like we practiced yesterday. I appreciate the analysis, but I'm eager to start playing properly. That's good. Both of us now? Is she gonna be like, just one more time? Her expression seems to drop ever so slightly before she catches herself and nods again. Alright. She set about reading her flute and tracing over her sheet music to prepare herself. And I feel somewhat strange, as though once again she has something on her mind that she's not admitting. However, she looks towards me expectantly, so I put my focus back onto the piano, willing to get on with things. Now that she seems ready to play, she counts us in, and we begin the piece properly. I think one factor in which she is really uncomfortable is that you caught her in a very vulnerable state, not falling over, but in a vulnerable state of emotion where Haruka essentially lashed onto you, Kakeru, without you expecting it. So I think that is probably what is on her mind right now. It's just both the embarrassment of hugging you, Kakeru, but also as well just the emotional state that she was in while she was hugging you. Like, what is the reason behind the hug? Was it out of affection or some sort of desperation as a way of saying thanks, but not being able to do it in a calm manner? As I settle into it, I keep an ear on her flute, melding our parts together in my head and follow along with what I need to do. It's going quite well so far, and my eyes flicker between my music and my hands, staying as focused as I can. However, once we get towards the middle section that Haruka had mentioned before, something starts to feel off. For a second I wonder if it's me, but then I realise that a crucial sound is missing. Haruka has stopped playing. Oh no, not again! Not one of these moments again where she's gonna fumble over and get very, very emotional. I grind to a halt myself, suddenly thrown off by the absence of her parts, and looks up at her curiously. At first I wonder if she's just gotten confused with whatever she'd been trying to figure out earlier, but then I catch a proper glimpse of her face. She stands there with a somewhat somber expression, slowly lowering her flute to her side, and grows completely still, like a statue. Haruka? This again. Is it again? Yeah, it's this again. It's about the festival. But it's a little bit different this time around because we're doing a duet rather than a solo and a group. There are definitely different dialogues in here, like this, for example, about being happy with Kakeru, about playing Venus with her as a duet, rather than, I think the last time was something along the lines about having the courage to be within a group performance or something. I think it was along those lines. Not accurately, but I think it's roughly along those lines. Haruka, what's with those doubts? Seated doubts right there? You're not going to leave me, are you? Her finger squeezes mine as she gazes hopefully at me. For my insides practically dance with fear at the thought of voicing my commitment so seriously. Locking me into a promise to try to stay true to what I want to say. If you won't leave me, then I won't leave you. Wow, it's like we're committed to you, but are you committed to us? The words seem to touch Haruka in the right way as her smile grows slightly wider. Okay, I trust you. Blissfully, the dense atmosphere begins to lift and Haruka's spirits seem to rise a little with it. There was definitely a few changes within the dialogue because of the musical situation that they were in, but it was largely the same dialogue. Haruka sends her flute soaring to its highest note. Holding it as the chord I played underneath it rings out, then removes simultaneously, me lifting my hands from the keys and the pedal from the floor, while she stops exhaling, ending the sound she's creating. The noise level in the room gradually ducks down to silence once more, signaling the end of the piece, and the two of us remain paused, almost as though neither of us wanted to disturb the moment. However, Haruka lowers her flute from her mouth, turning towards me with a smile, which causes me to relax too, returning despite the fact that she can't see it. Better? Yep, much better, after eating a Snickers. You feel better? Yeah. With sunglasses on and everything. She nods vigorously as she replies, and my shoulders sag with relief. I couldn't imagine Haruka with those kind of like cool sunglasses on. It's Friday, the last chance we'll get this week to practice together, and after Haruka's dreadful breakdown yesterday, things similar to Karma. A lot of Karma, I mean. I guess it might have helped her to spill her concerns out to someone, as opposed to keeping them to herself, or perhaps she's taken time to reconsider things, and feels easy about the situation. Whichever it is, I'm just glad that she seems to be back to her normal self. More or less. Our practice today has gone pretty well, and instead of getting boggled down in all of the tiny details like she had before, she's been noticing more level-headed about everything. It's been really beneficial for the both of us, returning that sense of support to me that had felt somewhat missing. Our practices have become peaceful and enjoyable again, and our progress with Venus has continued to improve once more. So thankful for it. I regard her with contentment as she gazes contentment back at me, her expression growing curious. How much time do we have left? Only 5 minutes? Oh, enough for one last run through then, if you want. I considered it for a second, a somewhat cheeky idea popping into my head. Actually, would you play your parts with me? Well, so without me, just once. I want to solidify them in my head so that I really know what you're playing at what point. I'll read along with my music. She tips her head to the side, as she often does, with contemplating something, and then nods. Okay, I don't mind. It's always good for me to be able to play independently anyway. In a way. She turns away from me to check over her sheet music, and I smirk to myself. It's true that it would be indeed be useful for me to know her parts as well as mine, but the reason I asked had been slightly more selfish than that. I can't deny that, given everything we've gone through in the last week. I just want to listen to her play, without having to concentrate on anything myself. Now that her composure is back in place, her passion is starting to seep back into her playing properly. In the spirit of trying to maintain my own ambition and optimism, I'd appreciate a little inspiration which I know that she can deliver. keep my motives to myself, which is a very bad thing to do, by the way. I watch her as she begins to play, my mind still practically in work mode, analysing the notes and simulating the sound of my own parts in the background. The rest of me simply spectates, enjoying her performance for what it is on the surface, though amplified in meaning with the knowledge of how much the piece means to her. The longer it goes on for, the more I realise I really do admire her as a musician, and also just as a person. And also as a person, Kakeru. The way she plays can truly move people, and I feel grateful to have been chosen to explore my own capabilities alongside her. The sound of her throat continues to lull me until the piece is over, and then she looks over at me with an expression that seems to suggest that she already knows the answer to what she's about to ask. Did I do alright? More than alright. Spectacularly indeed. She shakes her head to dismiss my comment, but her smile stays in place nonetheless, and then she starts to put the flute away. We better get ready to go. Yeah, the bell's about to go any minute now. Brought back into reality by her reminder, I pack away my things as she does the same, donning our bags just as the bell rings. We wait a few moments so that the main room can clear out ahead of us and then make our way into the corridor. Is Kudo Sensei going to intercept us at any point? He didn't. The air is dense with the giddy anticipation for the weekend that comes with each Friday, radiating off every student. The fact that the festival is next week is definitely adding to it, too. There's an extra feeling of nervous energy in the atmosphere. I don't appreciate that, but do my best to ignore it as I stride alongside Haruka. So, do you think we sound good enough now to convince Kudo Sensei that Venus was a good choice after all? Indeed it is. She says this with a hint of amusement in her voice, so I can tell that she's probably feeling better about it now. What do you think? As I'd expected, the corners of her mouth turned upwards slightly as we continue to walk. You're right. Do we really need an answer from another person? Haruka, do you really need that clarification when you know the answer already? I suppose it is just nice to get an extra opinion on board. Our minds in the same place and exit out into the late afternoon light. What is up, Haruka? Her cheeks turn a little pink before she continues. Thanks for everything. I know I've been really... No, you haven't. No, you haven't at all. Don't worry. It's seriously fine. I cut her off to stop her from apologising or wants to feel as though she has to, which she really doesn't. You've had a reason to be stressed, so it's no wonder. She seems a little conflicted between accepting my point and fighting it. True, but you're nervous too. I got so wrapped up in my own problems. I didn't make sure you... I'm alright. I'm alright. I am fine. I'm positive! I was going to say, can you see my smile? But then realise it's a dumb comment to me. Again, I jump in to put a stop to her fretting. Although feeling my worries begin to swell up at the thought of how I've been trying to squash them so much recently. I have to concede that what I said isn't really the truth. Okay, well, I'm not, I trailed off, unsure on how to express my feelings adequately while at the same time not concerning her too much. She lets out a sigh, nodding to herself as though she already knows what I'm thinking without me saying it. I guess we've just got to do what we can, haven't we? It's a simple sentiment, but probably true. No matter how much we obsess over our feelings about what is going to happen next week, the only thing that we can really do is keep trying and relying on each other, in the hope that it will help us to overcome it all. Yeah, the conversation grinds to a halt with two of us suspended in a moment of shared contemplation. Though neither of us can be certain about anything, she shoots me a small smile in an attempt to keep our moods light. Still, I do mean it. Thanks for helping me out. If you feel like you need to vent about stuff too, then you can. I appreciate the offer, though I'd hate to bring her newly restored confidence back down by dumping all my rubbish out into the open. Thanks. Okay, well, have a good weekend. You too. See you on Monday. Bye. Just looked for a bit of this, and this is vastly different from last time. As I look at them, my emotions whirling inside me like a vortex. I almost gave in to the strong desire to change my mind and just leave the room. Then to my surprise, something seems to snap inside me, and a complete alien sense of firmness replaces it. It's almost like having a very, very broken gear inside your head. But because of this situation, that gear has suddenly snapped back into rotating. I can't just stand by and not let them know how I feel about everything that they've just told me. I can't just meet with the same blank indifference that they've had to become used to from me. I need to open myself up to them. I need to stop making excuses. I close my eyes, taking a deep breath to center myself. And once I've let it go, I fix them with an unflinching gaze, letting what I really want to say just flow out of my mouth. I'm so sorry for everything. I've gone about this whole thing completely wrong. My voice raises in pitch slightly as my upset begins to spill into it. But I keep talking. I didn't mean to push you both away. I just got so freaked out with everything. People started hurting me over this stupid thing. I flick a hand over my condition, still hating the way it feels under my fingertips. And I didn't know how to handle it. I thought if I pretended not to exist, then no one would judge me. So I just stopped trying to live. I know I shouldn't have done it, but it felt like the only thing I could do. And then I started to really hate myself, because I'd shove you both as if we didn't know each other anymore. Ouch. This is the first time we've seen these expressions from them. As my ton of words keep coming, my parents slowly seem to shrink into sadness, their expressions growing more pained by the moment as they recall the hurt of everything I'm mentioning. I can't stand to see their anguish, but I also can't stop the rush of emotion. You gotta let it all out, man. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, and I really need you both to know that I'm so sorry for the way I've been. I would have deserved it if you started resenting me because of it. But even though all of this rubbish, you stuck by my side anyway. But yeah, I'm really sorry, and unable to prevent it, I begin to cry in front of him. Feeling ashamed, yet at the same time, I don't see the point in hiding it now. Let it all out, man. Let it all out. I've already spent so many unnecessary years doing a whole heap of blank in order to not look weak in their eyes, and since their respect for me apparently hadn't diminished at all, there had been no value in any of it. Now that my uncharacteristically strong need to speak is running out, I start to get tongue-tied again. But I must have the strength to say one last thing. One thing they need to know more than anything else. I love you both. When it slips out of my mouth for the first time in an unfathomable amount of years, I feel the foundations of the wall I'd spent so long building up crumble, crashing to the ground and leaving nothing standing between us but empty space. That's what I thought you was going to say. As if the words had freed me from my awkwardness, or at least just enough of it to matter. I step into that empty space, closing the gap between me and the person close to me, which happens to be my mum. And there we go. For the first time in so long I can't remember, I wrap my arms around her in a hug. It feels incredibly alien to me to be doing this, but it's so overdue that I refuse to listen to my insecurity wails of protest. Mum grows wood in my arms, freezing for a moment, as though she can barely believe what's happening, and then, as if in slow motion, she gingerly puts her own arms around me in response. A huge shift seems to take place in her body as she holds me tighter, leaning into me and sighing heavily. I wonder how long she's been hoping that this would happen again. Did she ever start to believe that the day would never come? I think this is the same again, but that dialogue was definitely different, because we've never seen their sad emotions before, Kakeru's mum and dad. Like, we've never seen those poses before. I can't tell you how happy we are to hear that, Kakeru, and don't you ever think that we'd resent you. We love you too. How could we? Resent you. Dad steps up to her side, putting an arm around her comfortably and nods. Yes, son. You might have made some mistakes in how you've handled this situation. But we've probably made some too. Nobody's perfect. Indeed, nobody is perfect, and neither of us blame you for how things become. I nod silently in response, attempting to dry off my face more thoroughly, and sniffing. We're happy to support you no matter how you choose to live your life, but after hearing you say all of that... She sniffles herself, and then her face brightens as she beams at me, her sudden ray of sunshine on the pain. Well, we're just so glad to have you back, Kakeru. Dad bursts into a pleased grin at her words, and I can't help but do the same, feeling as though the sand is lifting from the room. But the feelings are just as bad or more powerful as last time, the first time. I guess my gratitude and apology, as well as my long-awaited expression of love, has made it all worth it in their eyes. The three of us struggle slightly, united in our relief that the gap between us has been bridged at long last, and as I gaze at the pair of them I feel as though a weight has been lifted. I know that my parents love me, and now that they know that I love them too. More than that, it seems as though the struggles of our past has been forgiven, ready to make our way for a better future for our family. You're gonna be alright, son. Everything's just fine between us. Understand? Yeah. Anyway, how many times do you reckon we'll get through Venus today? I wasn't as bad as last time, but I still cried a little bit there with the situation with Kakeru and his parents. Like, it's such a touching moment, I just feel. I don't know why I feel that particular moment, when there's so many other moments which can have such an equal amount of emotional impact, but it's just that one moment, that one click that Kakeru has with his parents where he just breaks down both his emotional walls and his own emotions, just to be close to his parents. Not just to be, but be nice. Haruka slightly smiles slightly, clearly appreciating my attempt to bring the conversation away from the festival. Depends on how fast we can get started, I guess. Hoping to make her laugh, I put on a somewhat comedic turn. Alright. I'll make for a club at super speed. Oh dear. Not super speed, as they should be going a bit more slowly for Haruka's convenience. Hello, Kudo-sensei. Surprised to see you here. Not that surprising at all. Enters with his usual grin, although he seems to be extra enthusiastic today. I'm guessing it's due to our proximity to the festival. Hello, you two. I'm just here to catch up with how you're doing and tell you a few important things. Okay, Haruka seems to relax slightly as she recognizes his voice, although I can sense that now familiar air of mild irritation coming from her at his presence. How have you been coming along? Is the piece sounding better now? It sure is. We both nod and I worked myself up to say something, figuring that Haruka probably wouldn't want to engage him much. However, she surprised me by answering him first, beating me to it. Yeah, it sounds great. We figured everything out. I guess this is her attempt to bring things full circle and defend our choice once again, with proof to back it up this time. My input mostly redundant now that she seems to have found some courage. I stay quiet. Kudo-sensei's eyebrows me with intrigue at her response. Ah, that's very good to hear. Would you mind if I listen to it, so I can get a proper idea of how it sounds? Haruka and I automatically look towards each other to confer, and she nods subtly to me, signaling that she's okay with giving him another preview. Okay. She takes my reply as a cue to get ready, and I do the same with Kudo-sensei steps back to watch us both properly. It feels just as awkward as it had last time we did this, but the pair of us have more confidence in how we've managed to make the piece sound now, so it does start to lift slightly as we get down to business. We begin the piece, and I'm strongly aware that Haruka is putting her all into it, giving it her best to convey to Kudo-sensei that we know what we're doing, and I follow her lead, playing as well as I can. It runs as smoothly as it had before he come in. And when we bring the piece to a halt, looking towards him for a reaction, he claps his hands together. He smiled widening. Very nice, actually. You've obviously put in a lot of work since the last time I heard it, and it's paid off. I like the arrangement too, and how you've designated the parts. It's light but effective. Yes, I'm quite happy with that. Pleased at the improvement of his opinion, I suppress a little victorious smirk, taking a sideways glance at Haruka. She seems to be doing the same, and I'm glad that if we could meet eyes right now, it would trigger a stiff giggle at our success. Now, having said that, I need to fill you in on what I told the group at the start of the club session. We both turned to regard him more seriously, picking up on his slightly more businesslike tone, although his expression doesn't grow any less cheerful. Firstly, I should impress upon you both the importance of staying diligent during this time. We've got 4 days left until the festival, which isn't a lot, but it doesn't mean that we can go getting complacent. However, given what you've just shown me, I don't think there's too much need to worry. Just make sure that you stay at your top of your game, okay? He smiles at us contentedly, seeming to be genuinely trusting our abilities as a duo now. We both nod. However, it's his next point that starts to create a growing trepidation within me, and I assume within Haruka too. Secondly, there's going to be a stage rehearsal on Wednesday in the auditorium. This will give us and the stage technicians a chance to map out everything we need, microphone wise, and we'll be able to organise our entry, exit, and on-stage formation. Naturally, the two of you will have a separate run-through on the stage, so your rehearsal won't take as long, but it's very important, so keep that in your minds. As we listen to him back to describe his stage rehearsal, I feel as though a rock slowly dropped into my stomach. It's not what you call a kidney stone, but it's a boulder. I don't like the sound of this. Judging by what he's saying, we're going to be practicing our walk on and off the stage and essentially running a mock performance in front of the technicians who will adjust the audio setup to make us sound good through the speakers. It all makes sense as something that needs to be done, but the thought of it fills me with fear. As though it's going to be a real performance, it's only a practice run, but, well, I think I just don't know what to expect, having never done this before. I'm not sure who the school gets to do the sound engineering, but I don't feel comfortable with the idea of a bunch of random strangers suddenly descending on our practice with microphones and other equipment examining us closely. They're examining the equipment, not the person who is playing the equipment. Although in a way they are concentrating on the person because they need to get the height of the microphones adjusted correctly. I've never been to a school's auditorium before, but I don't think I'm 100% sure on which building it's on. Could Sensei continue to talk, so I try to shrug off my nose and listen to what he has to say. I take a quick look across at Haruka at one point, who also appears to be growing tense. I know that she's done rehearsals before, but it must still be a very scary prospect for her too. After informing us on everything that we need to know about the rehearsal, Sensei wraps up his speech regarding us both with an encouraging expression. I do think that both of you have done very well in getting this far, so I want to say congratulations to you for your efforts. All you've got to do is keep up the good work and focus on really giving it your all, and you'll do a wonderful job on the night, no doubt about it. For a moment, I'm struck with a genuine gratitude on this. For his apparently sincere words, glad that he thinks that we're actually contributing something positive to the club for once. He straightens up, nodding at us both with unfailing optimism. Good job, both of you. I'll see you again soon. Thanks! He pulls the door open and I watch it swing back on its hinges to conceal him as he leaves, closing behind him and putting us back into our undisturbed safe zone once more. Our time and space has once again been brought to a continuum of loveliness. As silence reigns, both Haruka and I swivel to face each other slowly, a sense of worry filling the air. I guess we really are getting close to it now, aren't we? It's not like we hadn't already been aware of how many days we have left before the big event, but was not told about the rehearsal. However, now that it's been stated in such bold terms alongside the details of our rehearsal in 2 days, the almost crushing sense of worry is pretty much impossible to ignore. Taking a deep breath, I try to exhale as much of my jitters as possible. If I was looking at Haruka's troubled expression, I can't help but mourn the loss of the nice atmosphere we've been enjoying earlier. Yeah, that is indeed true. But there are seats here, aren't there? My eyes flick over to the back wall of the room where chairs have been lined up to accommodate those waiting for their turn to perform. A large bit of cutout is just exactly the same stuff from the last time. It's just going to the auditorium and being nervous and all that sort of jazz. But we're here now and things are a little bit different because it's just the two of us now rather than just Haruka here. Just Haruka. She nods and we head over to them, Haruka needing a little guidance as where they are. Once we're settled, we put out our sheet music in an attempt to distract ourselves from our nerves, and Haruka assembles her flute. After a short silence, she exhales loudly, seemingly trying to rid herself of anxiety as best she can, and I attempt to follow suit. You know, I'm thinking that our turn might not be very long at all. The group has loads of instruments to set up microphones for, whereas we only have 2. She tries to interject some optimism into her voice. She says this, and though the atmosphere around is still tense, I appreciate it nonetheless. Good point. She nods, taking a deep breath as she tries to lean back in her seat and relax. However, something else seems to come to her mind as she speaks up again, sounding highly vulnerable. At least I'm not by myself this time. She looks towards me, gratitude flooding her expression. I can't help but return it earnestly. Despite the fact that I'm not very good with words at the moment, I do feel incredibly glad I'm able to stay by her side throughout all of this torture and gain her support too, instead of going it alone. We could do this together, and then just leave as though it's a normal day, right? Yeah. She hums a sort of hesitant agreement, and then closes her eyes for a moment, probably in an attempt to let the idea that everything will be okay sink into her brain. Of course it'll be okay. My nerves continue to bubble horribly in my stomach, but knowing that nothing is going to happen for the time being, I try to allow myself to just sit still and regain some mental balance. After resting for a while, it feels like it's been longer than 20 minutes by the time the group suddenly come back down the stairs of the stage, their footsteps thundering. It causes both Haruka and I to jump slightly in our seats, scared of being called up to take our turn. However, after observing for a moment, I realised that they're practicing their stage entry and exit, so we're spared for a few more minutes. After enjoying the cacophony of them charging on and off stage a couple of times, we listen as Kudo Sensei tells them that their part in the rehearsal is over, reminding them of things that they need to keep in mind of the festival itself. He then asks them to stick around, as he wants to address everybody together at the end. As the bodies disperse, he heads over to us, and my head starts to pound, knowing that we can't avoid it any longer. Alright you two, time for your rehearsal. I'm sure it'll be quicker than this lot. Yeah, rather than 15 lots of instruments, we got 2. He jerks his head towards the group with a grin. I know that you've never done this before, Akane, but it's nothing big. Just a few run-throughs while they sort out everything that you need. It'll be like an everyday practice, except there's more bodies around us. You know that it's no big deal, don't you, Fujiwara? He looks at her, his voice rising with an encouraging tone, and she nods awkwardly, trying to convey more confidence than she actually has in response to his question. Though I'm still terrified, I appreciate the fact that he's trying to make me feel better and force myself to smile briefly to acknowledge his words. Alright then, let's breathe through it, shall we? Come this way. He turns and strides towards the stage, casting a glance back over his shoulder. Haruka and I stand up, making sure that we have everything that we need before awkwardly forcing ourselves to follow him with a concerted effort. In a concerted effort, I watch as he ascends the stairs to the stage, and as we approach him ourselves, I feel a slight pressure against my arm once more. Haruka has shifted to be close to me again. The material of our blazers rubbing together as we move. She doesn't say anything, but in a way I feel as though I hear her silent plea for me to stay with her as closely as I can. And I send a mental reply in my mind, telling her that I'll do my best to get through this alongside her. Alright, so we're just going to set up a microphone, so we can't imagine that you'll need many. So that makes things nice and easy. All we need you two to do is have a few run-throughs of your piece, just as if you were practicing normally, okay? I feel as though I couldn't even say a word even if I desperately wanted to. The voice half caught in my throat, and as I eye Haruka discreetly, she looks as though she's feeling the same thing. She nods hesitantly, and I coax myself to do the same, feeling somewhat ashamed that our fear is so blatantly obvious to him. He doesn't seem to be finding it annoying or pathetic though, and if anything, a little hint of sympathy enters his expression as he regards us. However, he maintains his professional upbeat demeanour and flashes us both an admittable smile. Good. Now, if Akane is going to be there at the piano, then it would probably make sense for you to stand somewhere around here, Fujiwara. It makes it so that both of them are in the spotlight in some way, even though one person's at the front and another person's at the back. He takes a few steps over to a spot nearer to the piano, but sit a little closer to the front of the stage, probably so that she doesn't get visibly drowned out by the instrument's bulky frame. If you could come and stand here, I can help you get your sheet music set up. Her gaze moves to match the direction that his voice is coming from, but despite the fact that she's figured out where to go, her nerves prevent her from moving straight away. She fumbles with her things for a second, looking back towards me and seeming reluctant to leave by my side, and I struggle too, not wanting to be parted from her. However, there's not really anything we can do other than accept the situation, just get it over with as soon as possible, so I must have proposed to mutter to her quietly under my breath. I'll still be next to you. The reminder that we'll still be sharing the stage and playing together serves to bolster both of us ever so slightly, and she nods stiffly before I turn back to where Kudo Sensei is standing, creeping over to him. He shoots me a somewhat grateful look from over his shoulder as she approaches him, and throws a hand in the direction of the piano. Take a seat, Akane. Thank you. I do as I told. Heading shakily over to the piano, try to avoid anybody's eyes as I do so. After a moment of sitting there and gazing at my own warped reflection in the dark wood of the piano, I gaze around as several technicians appear, their arms laden with equipment ready to set up the microphones to amplify our performance. I still look at Haruka, peering slightly around the side of the piano to see her properly. Sensei has set her up with a stand on her sheet music, as well as a chair for her to rest her cane against when she's performing. He's currently describing the layout of things, so that she has an idea of where she and I are in comparison to each other, and in relation to the edge of the stage. She nods vehemently along with everything that he says, her head turning somewhat twitchy as she tries to take it all in. As technicians begin to analyze our setup, putting microphones on stands, and angling them appropriately, I return my focus to my own nerves for a moment, feeling so incredibly out of my comfort zone. At one point, I wince and lower my head awkwardly as one of them tweaks something on a microphone that's pointed under the lid of my piano, my attention uncoiling slightly as he moves away again. After a couple more minutes of this, then congregate at the edge of the stage, and the director signals to Sensei that he's ready to hear us play. Alright, let's have a run through, shall we? Just as you usually would, my bad. He stays in place, the technicians not far away, all of them poised to hear the sound we produce, and adjust the setup accordingly. Nerves bunch in my gut, and feeling my face turn red with heat, I take shaky breaths and tell myself it's just another practice, and that the technicians and engineers aren't here to stare at me and scrutinize, but simply to do a job. Exactly, Kakeru! Haruka swivels slightly to look towards me, but she does miss the mark somewhat, due to the fact that this is not a familiar situation at all. Exactly. She usually counts us in, but at the moment, she seems to be frozen in fear. I attempt to say something to her, but it doesn't quite come out. Instead, I end up making an awkward noise that sounds a bit like I'm clearing my throat. Despite how inadequate it's been, something flickers in Haruka's eyes as she's taking it as a sign that I'm here and waiting for her. I'm still here with you, Haruka! She takes a deep breath, her chest heaving before... There's reassurance mainly. Her chest heaving with the force of it. Then finds her voice, counting us in so quietly that I barely hear her. Nevertheless, I listen to her instruction, my entire body seeming to throb with terror, and force myself into action on her cue. The familiar sound of Venus fills the air, though it has a certain frailty to it, due to our attentive performance. I do my best to become absorbed in just playing, exactly, just play the sheet music, and not thinking about anything else. It's very difficult, my hands continue to tremble as we perform, but I just about manage to keep up. When the run-through comes to an end, I find myself gasping, as though I've been holding my breath for the entire 3.5 minutes that we've been playing. I watch as the director and engineers talk with Sensei, and then a couple more adjustments are made to the microphones. I'm not sure how many more times we're going to have to play the piece until everything is as it needs to be, but I hope it's not many. Trying to ignore the activity around me, I avert my gaze from the engineers and look across the stage at Haruka again. She's contemplating her feat, and I can't really tell from her demeanour whether she's feeling any better than when we started or not. After a moment, she turns her head in my direction again, seeming conflicted, but then she nods subtly to herself and then turns back to face the front. If I had to guess, I'd say that she's trying to remind herself I'm still here, and that she's not really alone. A sense of sympathy burning my chest. I try to still myself and resolve to get through this rehearsal as best I can. If I continue to play in every run through it as she's expecting me to, then she'll know that I'm with her, regardless of the fact that she can't see me. As the technicians move back to the side of the stage once more and Sensei orders another run through, I glance at her one last time before reading my hand over the keys. This is a terrifying experience, but if she's daring to do this, then I better make sure that I do too. Okay, that's your setup all finished. The director would like you to just practice your entry and exit. So if you head to the foot of the stairs, you can give that a go now. Akane, you'll be in charge of leading Fujiwara to her spot and anything else that she needs, I assume. For a moment, a gulp in trepidation of being given more responsibilities, when I catch myself, realise that Haruka will probably be more comfortable with me guiding her than anybody else, so I nod obediently. He smiles gladly, and then takes a moment to point out how we should enter the stage, and in what order we should take care of Haruka's preparations. I'll have to help her place her sheet music, put her cane aside, and get her in the optimal position for the microphones to capture her flute. Once his little speech is over, he begins to walk towards the opposite side of the stage. But as I stand up, I realise I've almost forgotten something very important. Our parents' seats! I wanted to find her and show Haruka which direction they were in from the stage. Still feeling incredibly shy, but spurred on by the urgency of the matter in my mind, I call it to Sensei before he has a chance to get too far away from me. My voice sounded a little strangled. Startled by the unexpected summons, he altered his course to approach me once more. Yes, Akane? But Fujiwara wanted me to go to where our parents would be sitting on Friday, so can I call up to her, and then she could get an idea of where they'll be? His eyebrows shoot up upwards as he regards me with some surprise. Ah yes, that's a good idea actually. Very thoughtful. I can do that if you like, when you're back on stage after your entry. For a moment I hesitate as I kind of envision myself being the one to convey this information to Haruka, but realise it probably take less time for him to do it. I relent. I tell him the details of our parents' seats, and then he nods with a grin before jogging across the stage, heading down the steps and disappearing into the backstage area. Realize I need to help Haruka with her things. I spring into action, glad to return to her side again. Hey! She starts slightly as I speak up, but then instantly relaxes somewhat when she realizes that it's me, Kakeru. She doesn't manage to say anything more for now, simply following along with my lead as we gather her belongings together. Once she has everything, we make our own descent into the backstage room. Our nerves jangling somewhat when we come face to face with the rest of the club members, who are still waiting to go home. I'm sorry, you doe. Turning back around awkwardly, place ourselves at the foot of the steps as we've been asked to, and then Haruka leans against me slightly, seeming shaky. It's hard for me to know where I'm supposed to be up there. Can I link arms with yours? We walk up to the microphones together. I suppose that would help her out if the pair of us walked directly up to them in a straight line side by side rather than having her to wriggle it out herself. Then she'll know that she's definitely facing the right way. My chest flutters slightly at the thought of us striding along with linked arms. Yeah, that's a little bit of a romantic thing to do, if you say so myself. Something we've never done before, and certainly not in view of hundreds of people, but I try to shake it off. The hug we shared previously, as well as the hand-holding, were probably more intimate than that. Sure. Her expression lightened slightly with gratitude, but the main difference is that there's lots of eyes staring at us. But thanks. My limbs slightly grown even more wooden than before. I offer my arm out to her, and she shyly loops her own around it, her foot still in her hand. We settle after a somewhat bashful moment, and then I remember what I'd asked Kudo-sensei to do. Oh, Kudo-sensei's gone down to our parents' seats. He's going to let you know where they are. She looks in my direction, slightly more difficult to do than usual due to our new proximity. Oh, that's nice of him. Thanks for asking. It's okay. Our slight reprieve comes to a temporary end as the director calls out to us, asking us to enter the stage as though it was a real performance. Doing my best to ignore the way my nerves start spiking again at the insinuation that there be an audience out there. I move Haruka as she tackles the stairs again. It's okay. I do as she's requested, leading her in the most direct way possible towards the microphones, and we arrive there at a decent angle. We unlink her arms and I help her place her sheet music on the stand and set her cane down. Suddenly self-conscious now that I'm not focused on her as much, I pat over to the piano, try not to rush and take my seat. We pause for a moment and then the director claps his hands, stating that he's happy with how we executed it. Before we can say anything else, another voice enters the fray, somewhat distant in comparison. I'm standing right where your parents will be sitting, and they're very good seats. Can you hear me okay from up there? No, I can't. I'm still so far away. Both Haruka and I follow the sound I catch here, the sight of him down in the seating area. He isn't wrong about how good the seats are, as he's in the front half of the room, at the end of a row where it meets the centre aisle. What a stroke of luck, for my mum did end up succeeding her cringe-worthy attempt to have the ticket sailor juggle things around in her favour. I watch Haruka as she takes in the situation, engaged at Kudo-sensei as she tries to cement the location in her mind. They have a good view of you two, that's for sure. I'm certain that they'll really enjoy themselves. I realise that he's spoken again in order to give Haruka another chance to properly scope out where he is, feeling thankful towards him for picking up on how important it is for her to have continual audio cues. He checks that she's had enough guidance as to his location. She nods. He shoots us an all thumbs up grinning and ducks out of the road, probably in order to head backstage again. The director asks us for our stage exit and we repeat our entry in reverse, linking arms once more as we set off back towards the stairs. When we arrive at the bottom of them, Kakeru Sensei is waiting for us and I'm momentarily perplexed as to how we got there so fast. The magician has his secrets after all, and he's not going to share what those secrets are. Otherwise, more people could be magicians, and therefore, the entertainment and the value of each magician would decrease then. He regards us with a warm smile, which seems to contain a tiny hint of pride, although I might just be imagining it. Very good work, you two. You're all set for the festival now. I knew you'd pull through just fine, easy for him to say, but I'm not anyway glad to have potentially exceeded his expectations. He turns away, walking into the middle of the room in order to call everybody to attention. Before things quieten down, I feel Haruka's shoulders sag against my side as she begins to relax somewhat. Now that our rehearsal is finally over, I feel like I'll sleep for days now. You can't do that, otherwise you'll sleep through the actual festival. I know that feeling. Are you glad you did it? I ask because of how ragged she seems, but I'm comforted somewhat when she nods more generally. A small smile begins to grow on her face, though it is a drained one. Yeah, I am. At least I've got this far. She nods to herself as she contemplates the day's events, seeming to be both relieved and proud that she tackled the rehearsal better than she probably thought she would. And you too. We did it together. Indeed you did do it together. What is it about Venus that you don't like now? What do you mean? A genuine anguish crosses her expression as she contemplates it. I think I'm starting to associate it with stress, you know, for tomorrow. It's kind of stopped being a happy piece. I guess I can see how that's happened, and it must be really bothering her. To have something that you love more than anything in the world turn into something that scares you is a horrible thing. I get that. Maybe just try to remember why you chose it in the first place. It's the only piece of advice I can think to offer with my limited wisdom. The reason that we blame Venus is because of her passion for it, so if she can incorporate that back into how she views it somehow, then she might start to feel better. She nods slowly, seeming pensive and no less troubled than before, but still acknowledges what I said. Yeah, you're probably right. We run out of words, letting the silence return to the room as we ruminate, drowning our thoughts. Our own thoughts. After a while she speaks up again, a hint of upset glimmer in her eyes. You know, now that it's so close to the day, She trails off, trying to find the right words to describe her feelings, and once more I wait. I feel like I'm kidding myself by still being here, you know. Remember these words from the previous route. It doesn't make sense. She hasn't made it this far for the past couple of years, so the fact that she's here right now might be making her feel like something of an imposter. Well, the festival has always been beyond her capabilities, so it's pointless to keep trying. It's not pointless at all. I get why you'd say that, but I don't think you're kidding yourself. She looks at me again, the tone in her eyes waning slightly. No? No, definitely not. I'm not really eloquent enough to fully explain my viewpoint, but I'm certain that Haruka deserves to be here, and to give it her all tomorrow, if she feels like she can do it. Maybe you're right. I don't know. My parents told me the other night that I'm really brave, for getting this far again. But sometimes, I wonder if I am actually brave, or just stupid. She smirks ever so slightly in a display of dark humour, and it makes me feel oddly relieved knowing that she's not distraught enough to be beyond making jokes. Despite the sour mood in the room, I join in with a self-deprecation. No, you're definitely the brave one. I was stupid. She's got out a quiet laugh in her throat. Not true. The two of us exhale soft breaths and amusement, though oddly it doesn't really lift the dense atmosphere too strong to be wafted away by humour. Sorry. I shake my head despite the fact that she can't see it. Don't be. I'm terrified too. As I say it out loud, it truly becomes a reality, and my whole body seems to course with ripples of apprehension. Our time of normality and relative anomaly, before we're forced to both make hideously scary commitments, is really running out. Hello you two. I just wanted to tell you what I just told the group. Tomorrow come here as usual, and we'll have roughly 30 minutes of practice time. After that we'll be heading to the auditorium, alright? Both Haruka and I nod wordlessly, apparently nervous enough to have lost our courage to speak completely. He regards us both with a little concern in his eyes, though his smile doesn't falter. I do want you to know that I'm very pleased with both of you coming this far. I don't doubt that you're very anxious about your performance, but you've all done a brilliant job so far, so you've really got nothing to worry about at all. How about we all work as hard as we can and make this year a year to be really proud of, That last sentence is a very good one to bestow upon us. Pinky promise. I promise to come to school tomorrow and meet you for lunch, no matter how scared I feel. For a moment, I'm taken aback that her promise has nothing to do with the festival, but then I realise it's probably quite helpful for us to take things one step at a time. Yep, don't think about the festival, but the step before the festival. If she's apparently that worried about her ability to even show up to school, then it's best to just focus on that instead of the bigger picture. Okay, I'll do the same. Do you pinky promise? Yes, I pinky promise. Stepping forwards a little to shorten the gap between us, I reach out for her arm gently. She contemplates our movements as I pull her hand a little close to me, and then extend my own pinky, wrapping it around hers, smaller in comparison. She tightens her grip around me, probably out of instinct as we bob our hands slightly, as though imitating a handshake. There, it's done. She almost marvels at the silly ritual for a moment, and then follows my lead as I draw my hand away. And we can't break it, right? No, I have to get a knife and chop your finger if you do. Her expression lightens ever so slightly, conveying to me that she knows I'm only messing around and then she's not sealing the deal. Then, I'll meet you tomorrow. Yeah, neither of us move, our nerves still plaguing our every thought. However, now bound by our juvenile promise, we seem to silently communicate, resolving to attempt to face tomorrow with everything that we have. Bye, Kakeru. Bye. And off she goes, and then eventually off we go. A phone call from Haruka. Let's see what this is about. Hello? Nothing. There's no response to the other end of the line. No sound at all, except the music. The metallic tinkling of the music box reaches my ear through the phone, distant but audible. For a moment I simply listen to it without questioning what's going on, noting the way the whole world seems to grow still as I do. As the seconds tick by, my body slowly begins to relax as I take in the sound, and then the familiar timbre of Haruka's voice finally appears in a half-whisper, almost as quiet as a melody. Can you hear it? The words seem to float around in my head, causing me to succumb to an odd mixture of feelings that I can't fathom properly. Not quite understanding why this is happening, I allow myself to be lulled by the sensations nonetheless, and answer, yeah, I hear it. And I hear you too. She doesn't respond straight away, so I'm left suspended in the moment. But after the box has sung another line of notes, she pipes up again. I did what you suggested. I'm so stricken by the strange, somewhat dream, that I'm like feeling a dreamlike feeling, but I'm having that I can't quite put my finger on what she's referring to, but she keeps talking, filling in the blank for me. I remember why I chose Venus. I listened to it like this, instead of on the CD, or playing it for myself, and all those feelings came rushing back. I remembered everything that I love about it, and how it reminds me of the reason I started wanting to play music, and my parents, and you. My chest starts to flutter with deep relief at the knowledge that she's managed to recapture her passion, and also a mention of myself. I did find the real peace for her, so I guess I must have earned myself some association with the tune in her mind. My lips part as I think about how to reply, but I can't come up with anything in time to speak before she continues, her voice soft and hushed, as though she's telling me a secret. I've been so scared, Kakeru. I've nearly lost my mind so many times. I'm not sure how I'm even here. Despite her gentle delivery of the words, her suffering hits me square in my whole being, and my heart aches knowing the agony that she's faced. But I am here, and the thing that I've been hoping and praying for all this time, for so many years, it's so close. I can almost touch it. I'm terrified, but I still want to reach for it. An indescribable empathy wells up within me, and as I reel from it, I hear clicking sounds from down the phone as she winds up the music box, apparently not ready to let its serenity end. When she speaks again, my heart clenches inexplicably. I want to share that with you, if you still feel like you want to reach for it too. I remain silent for a few long seconds, buzzing with the intensity of my feelings, and Haruka stays quiet too, waiting patiently for my answer. When my voice is able to leap from my mouth once more, I know that what it says is how I really feel. I do. I hear the quiet rush from her breath in my ear as she exhales in what I recognize to be relief. All thoughts of the panic attack I've been about to have forgotten. I cradle the phone in both hands as if holding her voice as she replies. That makes me so happy, Kakeru. In this comforting, almost magical state, the two of us talk further into the night, listening to the music box as she continues to wind it, and sharing sporadic thoughts as they arise. As we do, I find myself almost floored by what I'm feeling, truly realizing that despite the fact that I can't entirely make sense of why, I've become so drawn to Haruka. I care so deeply about her desires, and somehow feel able to cultivate my own inspiration and ambitions in her presence. It's true that I am aiming to do this performance for my own reasons too, but I can't deny that my main motivation is to ensure Haruka's happiness, and I think it's been that way ever since she first asked me to play a debut with her. Hell, from even further back than that, the way she spoke about her dream when we've been getting to know each other has snagged me, and caused me to slowly become more and more invested in her success. Now that we've grown so close, and come all this way together, those feelings are intensified tenfold. Though it seems completely alien to me to be feeling this way, I can't help but acknowledge the truth that's bursting my chest right now. I know what my own dream is. My dream is to help Haruka's dream come true, standing by her side and watching her flourish, and in the moments that she falters, I want to carry her. Almost my entire being is trembling with terror at the thought that I might not be able to make it happen, that Haruka herself will also lose her will to keep battling her fears and push through. I have no idea what tomorrow will hold, and whether we'll be able to take that final step into victory or not. But what I do know, more strongly than I've ever known anything, is that I want to try. My mind whirling with all these thoughts, trapped together in a vortex that pushes and pulls at me internally. I acknowledge all of those feelings, and try to keep hold of them deep inside myself. In doing this, I feel my fate truly becoming inseparably interlocked with Haruka's, and in part, it petrifies me, but when I really think about it, I feel as though this is how it's meant to be. You don't need to cut my finger off. What about you? No, I'm in class right now. That's right, we pinky promised after school. Thanks to my horrible nerves, I actually forgot about it. Now I've been reminded, I recorded Green to come to school, get through morning's class and go to lunch with her as a base achievement for today, putting aside a terrifying big event for later. Yep, it seems that is definitely the case. Keep it together, Kakeru. Just like last time. Well, for us, for you it's the first time, for us it's the second time. And I don't think I can do this. I'm panicking, I'm losing it. The reality of the situation hits me full force and I start to quake dramatically. I chose this fate. I volunteered myself to participate in the festival, and I swore, no matter what, that I helped Haruka achieve her dream. I invited this destiny of my own violation, now it's coming for me. So terrifying that it elapses anything I've ever experienced before. What have I done? How on earth did I ever convince myself that this would be okay? Images rush my mind in quick succession, and I'm assaulted by the sight of hundreds of eyes on me, staring at my... No! That's not it! The lights simulating every imperfection. Haruka turns towards me in expectation. Our parents wait with bated breath. The room begins to spin, making me feel as though I'm about to fall over, and the sense of dread within me becomes absolute. This is too much. Snapping my eyes open, I turn my head to glance at Haruka. I can feel the tremors of fear coming off of her and radiating into me, but at the same time she remains somewhat steadfast. Her eyes convey a cutting sense of suffering, but I can still see a twinkle of hope buried within. She might finally be ready to do this, and after all the years, and I'm running the risk of ruining it all for her by giving in to my trepidation. I can't just destroy everything that she's worked so hard towards, but at the same time, I feel so caught up on my own feelings that it's almost impossible to wrench myself away. As I gaze at her, taking in the way she's visibly coaching herself through every moment, a horrible realization comes over me, one that pierces me with complete guilt. I've lied to her all this time, haven't I? I never told her the reason why I'm so anxious. She's taken my terrified nature for what it is, and continues to support me without ever questioning where it comes from. She has no idea what I really am. I feel like such a... No, you're not. Not only do I feel unable to go through with our promise, but I also couldn't even find the guts to be honest with my problems, concede my biggest flaw for my own selfish reasons. I almost told her once, on the day that she had that breakdown in the practice room, but I'd been too chicken to just say it. Disgrace racks my body and mind. For a moment, I go to open my mouth, to speak, to really tell her what I've hidden this whole time. Haruka is my best friend, my closest ally, my... whatever we are now, the person I can trust more than anybody else. Surely if there's anyone in the world who wouldn't judge me for my visual sins, it's her. The thought rings loudly in my mind as I stand there, gripped by indecision, the idea of letting my secret slip up so horrifying to me. What if it's too much, and she withdraws from me? Or was she first betrayed by the fact that I essentially let her believe in a somewhat untrue version of myself? I don't know what to do. Telling her could make no difference, or it could break the trust between us, maybe even for good, and shatter our performance to pieces. My bottom lip trembles as my eyes bore holes in her face, reading from the intensity of my feelings. Oh gosh. Okay then this is definitely the divergence. The divergence of which will decide the bad ending and whatnot. Holy gaze. Here's what I believe is going to happen. If we should just tell her, then what we're essentially doing is that the reason why we're friends with Haruka in the first place is because she can't see Kakeru's condition. Which is why he became friends with her in the first place, because it's less intimidating to be around a person who can't see your condition, rather than just simply saying, well, the reason why I was friends with you is because, well, I like you as a person. Rather than the fact that they can't see you as a person, your condition, stuff like that. I'm just getting a grip of like the other route and saying that if we persuaded something or told her something which she didn't like hearing, then you know what the outcome is going to be. And just for me personally, I feel like this is going to be even worse than the first bad ending, because A, we're in this condition in which we are going to perform a duet, but may not even perform a duet, but also as well our parents, the 4 parents there, are watching and waiting for us to be on board. And of course, this may be the case where we're not going to be on board because something happened at the last minute. I think I need to say it, at the very least. I should attempt to make up for my evasiveness and reveal the truth that I've omitted all this time. Considering everything that Haruka and I have been through together, I kind of owe it to her. My resolve shaking as much as my body as I force my voice to stop sheltering in my throat and speak. Haruka? Seeming surprised to suddenly hear me talk, she twists a little to look towards me, her movement wooden with fear. Huh? The sight of her innocent, unassuming eyes is almost too much for me, and I curse myself as I hesitate, momentarily unable to summon the words I want to say. Kakeru? The sound of her questioning spurs me on to just get this over with, and I swallow awkwardly, already hitting the sound of what I am about to say. Yes, that is what I thought that was the case. I've been hiding something from you. As I struggle with myself, I watch as her brow creases deeply in concern, her expression intensely worried by the admission. What is it? For a moment, I almost changed my... Nope, you can't change your mind. You've already gone down this path. But then I catch myself feeling the grip of her arm around mine, and know that I have to be honest. Fighting my mind's dismay about what I'm about to do, I open my mouth once more, letting my deeply hated secret fall from it. I have a I keep struggling how to pronounce that word. In the seconds that follow my confession, she doesn't reply, seeming both shocked and confused, and despising myself with every word I say. I elaborate. It's a birth defect, a massive, disgusting thing on my face. It's horrible. My whole being winces at how badly my self-esteem reefs in agony, and I feel almost close to tears. That's why I'm so nervous. Why I hate being around people. Okay, now the reason is coming up. I can't stand being seen. That's why I've been so scared of all this time, before performing on stage. I tremble awfully, partially out of fear and partially out of anger at my own shortcomings, to a point where Haruka's arm vibrates from the force of mine. I truly hate myself in this moment, having to tell her something so vile and repulsive about me. With my last sentence, my voice grows high and weak with sorrow and guilt, praying internally that she won't hate me for it. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you. A dense silence drowns us, with only the distant sounds of the music coming from on stage wafting in the background. For an undeterminable amount of time, Haruka simply looks at me, her face a picture of bewilderment, trying to comprehend what she's heard. She pulls her arm out of mine in dismay, shifting backwards slightly as she turns to face me more directly, and I can only imagine what's going through her head. Yep. I think Haruka's fathomed it out. Who is the stranger I've trusted all this time? What does he look like? And what else has he concealed from me? In utter despair, I brace myself for the negative response that I feel certain is coming, almost crying my eyes in anticipation of it. A lifetime seems to pass, during which Haruka does nothing but stare at me, intensifying every terrible theme that arises in me. For a moment I'm reminded of the very first time I met her, before I'd known that she was blind and the way she apparently cowered in fear at the sight of me. I know now that she's simply been frightened in the presence of a stranger, but given what I've just told her and how she's struggling to respond, I note darkly that the reaction I mistook for horror might as well be the truth now. Hearing some small movement, I look at her as she fumbles with her belongings, stuffing everything into her right hand, though it barely fits. After managing to hold it all securely in place, she directs her attention back to me, a deep concern still marring her expression. With great hesitance she reaches out with her now free hand, drawing closer to me, and my vision grows obscured. Softly her fingers meet the skin of my nose, and before I go rigid at the thought of her inevitably moving to touch my condition, I grimly accept the fact that this is the only way she's going to be able to get any sense of the truth. Grudgingly, my skin crawling, I let it happen. At first she moves to the wrong side of my face, brushing against the regular smoothness that everybody possesses. As her hand travels to the other side, I can't help but gulp and close my eyes, dreading her reaction once she feels it. Delicately, I feel her fingertips come down onto my condition, and the gasp I hear confirms to me that she's surprised, at the very least. She runs over it, tracing its rubbery texture haltingly, as though unable to comprehend the alien sensation against her skin. It feels like torture, but I endure it to allow her full access to the truth that she deserved to know from the start. After touching me for who knows how long, she slides her hand to the side, cupping my face, and I hear her breath sucking in sharply as she goes to speak. Kakeru? Unable to decipher what's going on, I dare myself to peek at her. I'm greeted by the sight of her anguished face, somehow staring right into my eyes, her own shining with the moisture of growing tears. She hesitates for what feels like forever, my guts wriggling with trepidation about what she's about to say. She's fathomed it out. I feel as though I'm ready for disappointment, her anger, her disgust at the state of me, all of it. She looks at me with so much conflict in her eyes, her hand still against my face, and for a second it feels as though she grows bigger in my field of vision, like she's moved closer to me. Wait, is she moving closer? Isn't she? It's not an illusion. It's... I didn't expect this outcome at all. Like, was being transparent the right option around this time around? And the other option of not talking about it is the worst option? Maybe something would have cropped up then and there. But I did not expect this whatsoever. It takes me a fraction of a second longer than it probably should have to realise that there's no space left between our bodies, and that the warm sensation against my lips is coming from Haruka's own mouth. She's kissing me. I don't know why I'm not more happy for these two, but for goodness sakes, I'm so bowled over and shocked by what is happening that I cannot summon any reaction at all by myself, completely astonished. I simply freeze in place, enjoying the waves of intense, unfamiliar feelings rushing through my body as she presses her soft lips to mine. She lingers for a long time, seeming to want to drain every last drop of feeling from it, and then slowly pulls back. I tilt my head slightly to regard her as she looks at me, remaining close enough that my eyes struggle to keep focus on her. Kakeru? As her cheeks flush considerably, her eyes seem to flood with something that I can only describe as genuine fondness. betraying an affection, but I didn't realize that she would ever feel this strongly for me. I don't care what your face looks like, and I don't care that you didn't tell me straight away. Ah, that's forgiveness right there. Her thumb strokes my condition unflinchingly, suggesting that she isn't bothered by its hideous texture at all. I just like you for you. I've always had. And knowing this doesn't change anything. I still want to be with you, to laugh with you and to be close to you, and play Venus with you if you feel like you can. The sheer magnitude of everything she's just said to me nearly sweeps me off my feet as I behold her. I feel so incredibly touched at just how highly she actually regards me, and how her apparent feelings for me make the whole issue of my condition irrelevant. I don't need to hide from her at all, do I? She values who I am over what I look like. Just my parents do. Exactly, that's what genuine people are. They don't look at you for who you are on the outside, they look at you of who you are on the inside, or what you are on the outside. You could be an alien tentacle monster from space, but you could be the most genuine creature there is out there. Love defies logic or species, by the way. I genuinely struggling to process this. Haruka doesn't care that I'm disfigured, and she likes me. Likes me. Somebody feels that way about me. I'm almost physically buckled under the weight of the torrent of emotions that comes over me, and I hear my own breath faltering as I gasp, trying to steady myself in the face of such a revelation. My mind attempts to make sense of everything. I consider the question that I'd left hanging. She wants to go out onto the stage and play Venus with me, if I can bring myself to join her. I won't lie, the idea is still terrifying, but in the wake of having been kissed and told that my appearance is irrelevant, I begin to feel like none of the fears matters anymore. Sure, the audience will have their own reaction to my condition, but Haruka would be with me, supporting me with her flute, with her affection, with her heart. Somehow, it makes me feel on top of the world to have her here, on my side no matter what. Exhaling shakily, I can't help but smile as I open my mouth to reply at last. Let's do it, Haruka. Let's make this dream come true. My words cause her to break into a huge beam, the corners of her eyes creasing as she smiles so wildly, visibly ecstatic to hear my response. She giggles gleefully, her breath wafting gently against my mouth, and then she closes her eyes. Gently yet firmly our lips meet. As the milliseconds pass by, my awe of this sensation gives way to a feeling that I never expected for myself. Something that I thought I'd go my whole life without experiencing, that makes my body seem to move on its own, without my conscious direction, goodness sakes, driven by something else, and that's not what's in your brain. I suppose part of it is in the brain. Your emotions. I raise my arms, wrapping them gently around her frame, and instinctively leaning to kiss, increasing the pressure between us. I feel her emit a soft sigh humming against me, and I truly give in to the theme that I think I've been tattering on the edge for a while now, something that resembles love. A distant sound penetrates the dreamlike moment, and the two of us part once more, rousing enough of my affection to realize that the audience is clapping. The group must have finished their performance at any moment they'll be returning to this room. Once I do, it'll be our turn to show the school, our parents, and all of the other families here tonight what we're capable of. Growing slightly embarrassed of a sudden intense shift in our relationship, we both giggle airily, our faces turning red, and then Haruka fixes me with a happy gaze. She speaks. Ready? Ready as I'll ever be. This is a huge confidence boost for the both of them. We both seem to silently acknowledge the fact that we're still petrified of what we're about to do, but at the same time, I think a newfound courage has taken over us. Took the words right out of me there, but I said beforehand, praying that it will be enough to get us through. I release her from my grasp. Oh no. We arrange ourselves back as we were, side by side with arms linked, not larms. And any seconds later, the group come trotting down the stage stairs, escorted by Kudo's Sensei. Everybody has victorious looks on their faces, himself included, so I'm guessing that their performance had gone well. For a moment, I wonder if our faces will look like that once we've finished playing, or whether we'll fold under the pressure instead. I have no real way of telling what will happen, but I find myself without enough time to properly consider it. Kudo-sensei sweeps towards me and Haruka, seeming exhilarated from being on stage, though concern begins to enter his expression as he regards us. Alright you two, Are you ready to go on? We're not going to say our newfound courage, but for goodness sakes, we're going to definitely go in there with all our hearts and mind and courage. Neither myself nor Haruka can answer him adequately, still incredibly unsure of ourselves, but nevertheless we respond, not in response, sorry, trying desperately to hold on to the feelings of joy we just experienced, and let them bolster our courage. He looks at us in a sort of perplexed manner, as though he can't believe that we're still here, agreeing to go on stage. Me too, Sensei. I don't think anybody would have predicted this in a million years. I'm sure your parents did. Well, that's wonderful. I'm so pleased for you both. You're going to knock them dead out there, I promise. Don't be afraid, and give it your all. I can't wait to hear it. His enthusiastic encouragement springs from him joyfully, and I can't help but smile a little. He's a good teacher, and I'm glad it had been him to advise the music club, as opposed to anybody else. I don't think another teacher would have sympathized with us quite as much as he has, while at the same time giving us a little bit of a push when there was a need for a push. He nods with a sense of significance, and then the voice of the announcer sounds over the speakers ahead of us, causing me and Haruka to turn to face the stage. We hear our own names reverberating around the auditorium, and instinctively squeeze each other's arms with trepidation, our nerves spiking once more. The announcer finished his introduction, and I turned to Kakeru Sensei one last time. He gazed at me with an earnest reassurance in his eyes, as though he's wishing us both all the luck in the world. Off you go! The 3 words caused a huge jolt of fear to rage within me, but I swiveled back to look at Haruka, waiting to see a reaction to our moment of truth. She simply stands there for a moment, inhaling deeply and squeezing her eyes shut as she battles with herself. And then, she extends her cane out in front of her, marking out the first step on the stage's wooden staircase, and strides towards it. This is it. We're doing it. There's no backing down now. Haruka has committed fully to our performance. Come hell or high water, and bound by our my sense of responsibility, as well as my newfound affection for her, I've got to do the same. It feels like interlocking arms now. It does not feel as awkward. Surrendering every ounce of common sense I have in me, I lift my foot off the ground and let my body subconsciously do the rest. And the light around us grows darker with each step we take as we reach the tied-back curtain. I spy the stage ahead of us, waiting for our presence, and through nerves boring up in my throat horribly, allow Haruka to pull me onwards. So I'm guessing that being honest and truthful is better than trying to hide something which you felt was like a worm inside of you. As soon as we step out, the lights brighten to illuminate us in that horrible white glow that I hate. It causes me to flinch across the stage at Haruka's side, unable to raise a hand to hide my condition if I wanted to, as my free arm is linked with hers. I try to channel every aspect of my being to simply concentrate on the task at hand, which at the moment is to guide Haruka to the right spot in front of the microphones. However, as I turn her towards them, my vision fills with the overpowering sight of a complete full auditorium, totally packed with bodies, clapping upon our arrival. Everything's so loud, and I don't just mean the volume of their applause, the lights, the sheer scale of how many people in front of me, the weight of this moment's importance. It all hums in my head frantically, pervading all my senses in the most invasive way. Again, not to insinuate, but it's a good thing that she's... Yeah, but right now I'm so glad Haruka can't see this. The intensity of the situation muted just a little for her. Well, vision aspects, yes, but not everything else. I'm sure she can hear and also feel the magnitude of the situation. Trembling, I do everything in my power to not look at the audience and just block everything out. Moving hesitantly, we walk alongside each other until I positioned her where she needs to be, having to place her sheet music and set aside her cane. As I do this, I take the opportunity to turn my back slightly to the crowd. When she's all set, I gaze at her with concern, seeing just how petrified she's become too, stiff and frozen with nerves, and it makes my own jitters worse for a moment. However, sensitive I need to get out of the way, I grasp her free hand for a second, squeezing it in with what I hope is a reassuring manner, before striding over to the piano with speed. I skirt around its shining edge, taking my seat on the stool and placing my sheet music onto the stand, and for a moment, I just sit there reading, the gravity of what's going on hitting me like a ton of bricks. I'm on the stage.
Somehow, I've managed to walk out here and sit down. I feel as though my heart is about to burst out of my chest. But I've got this far, and so has Haruka, fighting against my mind's threat to crumble. I steal a glance at the audience. Every face looks excited for what's about to happen. They're all gazing up at us with interest, looking forward to our performance. And that is what people are looking forward to, the performance, and nothing else. Kakeru! No one is gawking at me. No one's recoiled in horror. This isn't turned into a freak show. Exactly, that demon side of yours is being defeated once again. They're just watching. It's right, Kakeru. They're just watching. My chest throbbing and my head spinning. I crane my neck slightly towards the seats that our parents should be sitting in. After a moment of difficulty, I spot them. Mum was already crying in joy, and from what I can see from here, and both she and Dad are smiling so widely as they clap for me, looking towards me with encouragement in their faces. It makes me feel emotional as we catch each other's eyes in a way that's tough to describe. Haruka's parents are sporting similarly emotional expressions as they look at their daughter, and I find myself dearly wishing that she could see how happy they are. I watch her as she seems to remember Kudo Sensei's instructions about where they'd be sitting, turning to look in their direction for a moment. She then nods herself and faces the front properly, fiddling with her flute in both hands. Feeling heavier than lead, an all-consuming silence falls over the whole room as the audience grows quiet, still waiting to hear our piece. The stage lights soften, at last to bathe us in colour, and my breath catches in my throat as I realise that our moment of truth has arrived. I find myself unable to tear my eyes from Haruka's form, my view mostly of her back while I'm situated terrified and waiting for instruction. I watch her chest heave with deep ragged breaths as she turns slightly towards me, fighting her own terror, and then to my surprise, something shifts in her expression. She grows still, not quite calm, but oddly resolute, her demeanour changing considerably. I guess this is it for her. She reached that point in her mind where she's pretty much gone beyond fear. She wants to do this. Nothing is going to stop her now that we've come so close, both emotionally and progressively in our interests of music. I'm flooded with admiration for her strength, feeling it fill me up completely. Wanting to take it on for my own hand. On my own side, I reach out my hands, resting my fingers gingerly over the keys of the piano, and feeling a tense acceptance coming over me. Just give me the signal, Haruka. Just give me that one last push and I'll do it. And I swear that you'll never need to carry me through another challenge with such selfishness as you have with this one. Her tiny, timid voice reaches my ears, and I listen to her as she counts the beats, letting my body move on autopilot, my muscle memory conjuring up the first bar in my fingers as they press down, and against all odds, with equal amount of fear and passion in our hearts, we play. And as they go, the music is played. The whole world seems to stop turning to listen to our music. Every set of ears and eyes locked onto us with rapt attention. Haruka and I allow ourselves to become lost in the sounds we produce, letting our anxiety steadily giving way to other emotions. Venus winds its way out of our minds, through our bodies, our instruments, and into the air for all to hear, finally finding its voice through us at long last. I feel incredibly strange, as though my consciousness isn't fully in my body, but at the same time acutely aware of certain sensations. Yes, that is very accurate. Your consciousness isn't fully in your body. It somehow became one with the piano, in your fingers. So it isn't in your body, but it's within other parts of the body. Your fingertips, your eyes, the keys on the piano itself. You've become one with the talent so far now. It's a really odd juxtaposition of feelings, something that makes it seem as though I'm in a dream. But this is no dream. Pinch your cheeks, not right now, to see if it is really a dream. And you will begrudge yourself to find out that you actually wake up and you have to start over again. Maybe that is the actual bad ending. We wake up and actually, we never made friends with Haruka. My bad, I don't mean to say that in a spiteful manner. As I focus on my parts, I can't help but be swayed by the way Haruka is playing. Her nerves aren't apparent at all, and she's more full of passion and love than ever before, as though she was born to do this, giving herself completely to the music. She sounds beautiful, and it filters into my body and mind, spurring me on to play better myself, aching to accompany her as perfectly as possible. Forgetting about the lights and the hundreds of gazers on us, I pour myself into the music with everything that I have. I become so moved by how special this moment is, how incredible it is that we're doing this, and how privileged I feel to have been made a part of it all. Haruka chose me to be her musical partner. Apartment. How many times did I say that? To be her friend, to be even more than that. She gave me this wonderful chance, and I can't be more grateful to her. I don't even want to think about my old life anymore. I want to embrace this new one, with her by my side. My heart fluttering with a million feelings. I maintain my concentration as best as I can as we send the piece soaring and filling with emotion, just as we practice. The melody, now so familiar to me, touches me deeply as it courses through us both. It feels as though the notes create an invisible string as they burst forth, connecting Haruka and I together tangibly as we play. Just as I told her before, we don't have to see each other to feel as though we're right next to each other, deeply intertwined throughout our performance. The piece goes on, swirling to its crescendo, and the two of us let our intense feelings rush through us as we hit the final notes with a crash, sustaining them dramatically to the end. I watch Haruka intently, and at the moment she lets her breath stop, I release the piano's pedal, jerking my hands up off the keys simultaneously. Our sounds decay away to pure silence and unison, bringing Venus to its end. Nobody makes a sound or moves a muscle. The room's so quiet that you could hear a pin drop, and then... there we go. And that smile from Haruka as well. It's even more delightful than her smile when, in the other good end, the entire auditorium erupts into fervent applause, cheering and whooping for us as the lights come up again brightly. It takes me a second to settle into the moment, having been so spellbound by the precious atmosphere of our performance, but then it truly hits me. We did it. After all the anxiety, uncertainty and torment, we made it happen. I jerk upwards from a piano stool in both disbelief and elation, barely in control of what I'm doing, and snatch up my sheet music, rushing to Haruka's side. I reach out for her hand, and as I grasp it, she looks at me incredulously, tears welling up her eyes. Our fear dissipates at long last. We gaze out into the crowd, absorbing their adoration and positively buzzing from it. And as I scan the faces, I catch sight of my parents again. Both Mom and Dad have tears running down their cheeks, and I see that Haruka's parents are exactly the same. As I take in the sight of our happy families, so ecstatic to have witnessed us do this, my own composure cracks, and I start to cry too. Big embarrassing tears of joy. I never thought that this day would come, and yet here we are, celebrating our victory. My chest surging with so many feelings as I survey the scene. I realise I don't care about my condition anymore. I walked out here with it on full display, as it is now, and in the end, nobody had cared, valuing the music I helped to make over my appearance. Feeling more free than ever in my life, I turned back to Haruka, realised that I should help her get her things together to exit the stage. As she faced me, her pure, unadulterated ecstasy clear as day, we both burst into overjoyed laughter. This is everything we ever wanted. She told me about her lifelong dream, and we held it together between us, made it our dream, nurtured it with love, and brought it to a reality. The world has finally heard our voices, see our talents, and showered them with praise. She no longer needs to wish for a miracle. The performance that we wanted to give, and the people we longed to become, it's all come to fruition. All this time, it was never an impossible dream. It was never an improbable dream. At first it's impossible, but definitely not impossible. Only great. Thanks. You had to make the name of a game, and combined with the play that we did, or the music that we played, Venus, Improbable Dream, our wonderful, terrifying, heartwarming, improbable dream. As I gaze at Haruka happily squeezing her hand as my heart bursts with joy, I say a silent thank you to the universe for ever letting us meet, for bringing her into my life and improving it 1,000,000 times over. I'm so happy. That was wonderful. Truly wonderful. I wish there was like some sort of conclusion with these good endings. Like, we did have a good ending with, well, a conclusion after the first good ending that we did. But I wish there was something else that could have happened after the performance was set. Like a meet-up with both pairs of parents and them saying about how proud they are of their children and stuff like that. Like, that would have been something that would give it a bit more of a conclusion behind it. But not every story is perfect. But I feel like this is definitely one of the most emotional stories that can come out of a visual novel, or just in general a game, just something out of the fiction, because it really touches the soul when you can also understand in a way about how they go about on their day-to-day basis, like having something with you that you don't wish that you have, but you keep pervading through life even though you have it, but you don't let it stop you or fully stop you. It may stop you in the beginning because you're trying to find your way in life with it, but once you find a rhythm, once you find something that you go through with it, so that is so precious. Like I was honestly quite surprised that there wasn't any kind of romance in the other route, but that was more tied to the oh, there's my name again. More tied towards Kakeru's personal development, making other friends rather than directing his attention solely on Haruka, which, when going through this now, I can understand now that this is definitely the more romance-based route in the game. Like in the first route that I played, it was definitely like a bit of a hint towards like there could be some sort of romance between these two characters and the fact that their friendship could develop into something more. But I'm so happy that that was saved for this route, because this is, I think, where it's really mattered. Oh, that is great. That's really great. Look at Haruka's smile and Kakeru's smile as well. That's so brilliant. October, so this was a few months ahead now. The harder summers begin to leave us. I wish that was the case, actually, but that's only under normal circumstances. Giving way to cool breezes, and as always, Haruka and I stride towards the school corridor together, content in each other's company. It's difficult to describe exactly what I went through that night, when the two of us gave our performance at the festival, but what I do know is that I haven't been the same since. The entire experience had been so affirming for both of us, helping us to realize that we really were capable of achieving our goals, no matter how unlikely our success had seemed. I don't think either of us had fully come down from the euphoria that we'd felt when the whole auditorium had burst into raucous applause. The tantalizing cacophony of it all lingered in our hearts and minds. Our parents had gone absolutely loopy that night, in a good way of course. We thought we'd never hear the end of how amazing our performance was, and how proud of us they were. So many things had improved since then. Encouraged by the positive experience I had, I started to feel a lot more indifferent about my condition, realizing that for the most part it was really not the curse I built up in my mind to be. It'll take a while to break stubborn old habits, but in general I'm gradually beginning to drop the evasive rituals that kept me hidden from sight. I'm no longer in the bathroom before I go to meet Haruka, and I don't feel the need to be the last person in and the first person out of a classroom as urgently as I used to. Eating meals with and talking to my parents is just a natural thing now that I don't even waver about. It's like I'm slowly demolishing the walls I built around myself, brick by brick. I'm still uncertain as to whether they'll ever fully disappear, but I'm content with the fact that it's happening at all, feeling ever more free to be myself with the passing time. Haruka's changed too. She still has her nerves, just like I do, but I'm noticing that they're lifting similarly. Indeed, you both have helped each other out. She seems to walk with a certain self-assurance now that it's starting out small. Though it's starting out small, and she's a little more bubbly, laughing and smiling more openly. Her tentative nature regarding her surroundings will probably always remain due to her disability, but since she's probably more determined than ever to make sure that it doesn't define her, she's making progress. Besides, I think she feels more confident when her hand is in mine. Oh yeah, that's different too. After the events of the festival, I haven't been sure how to view what had transpired between us while we were waiting in the wings to perform at first. Part of me wondered if she'd simply acted on the spur of the moment, caught up in emotions fizzing wildly within us both. However, once I'd worked up the courage to ask her about it, we decided not to let those first fleeting kisses be our last. The old Kakeru would never have even bothered dreaming of being able to say this, but I guess I finally have my first girlfriend. I finally have a girlfriend. Putting a number on it sounds like there's going to be another. I'm kidding. We spent our summer vacation seeing each other as often as we could, listen to music and just be together. On a couple of occasions our parents came with us to visit, and the 6 of us had shared a meal together. They know each other better now, and seem to get on very well, particularly our moms. In fact, the 2 of us spent enough time sharing, giggling, whispering chats while looking at Haruka, and I with mischievous glee that it started to seem suspicious. Yep, very suspicious. Non-serious note to self, introducing them might have been a mistake. That aside, our summer has been great, and I started to catch up on what I'd been missing out on in previous years. I enjoyed long phone calls with Haruka on days that we hadn't seen each other, and we'd gone to the city together when we felt up to it. Now that we're a month into our final year at school, our focus on music is sharper than ever. We started learning new pieces, writing a list of everything that we want to try, and have already agreed that we're going to perform at the end of the year festival. It's the last one we'll ever see, and thanks to how we managed to finally break the ice and go through with our previous one, there's no way we'd let this opportunity slip. We're aiming to give the best performance we can, and this time, the thought isn't terrifying, but exciting. I'm not sure what the future will hold for us after we graduate, but for now, I couldn't be happier with how things have turned out. I have made my parents proud, reflecting more of that carefree little boy that I used to be, and now he's always present inside me, peeking out with a grin during moments where I fully let my guard down. I've started to gain a tentative confidence that I've never really had before, feeling more comfortable in my own skin, condition and all. I've found something I genuinely enjoy doing, and want to keep pursuing for as long as I can. Playing music is no longer simply a requirement of my membership in the music club, but a hobby that I relish indulging in whatever I can. And against all odds, I found a person that I adore, who inspired me to take these first fighting steps into this more positive future, and who I wish to share all this with. I found Haruka, and she shone her fragile little light into my world, and helped me dream again. Our lives aren't perfect. No lives are ever perfect, still flawed in their own ways, but as long as I can be by her side and hold her hand, knowing that we'll always have each other's support, then I think everything will be alright. Indeed it will be alright. How dare you say that it won't be alright? True end! Oh yes! That is... okay. So... the good end without a number on it is justified, and I'm so glad that that was the true end. Like, that is what Kakeru would have chosen to do a solo performance, but having the trust to have one another as a duet, that is what pushed him towards that particular outcome. And I've got to go for the bad end too. I've just realised this. I thought I was going to go on to bad end too by selecting the option about having to hide something, having to come out with it and be truthful, but that truthfulness was actually what was the good thing about that. I should keep it to myself. And you know what? It doesn't matter. There's no point in bringing it up now. Suddenly coming up with something like that would only cause more issues. It didn't. It caused the best thing to happen. And pile more stress on top of what we're already going through. Okay. Do you think that it's not the fact that they're going to argue with one another, but there's a lack of confidence in one another? Oh, gosh. And themselves, mainly. And more importantly, we're literally about to go on stage. Haruka is here, terrified and dependent on me to help her achieve her dream. My insecurities aren't relevant right now. I need to focus on her, not myself. If I could just push my fears back enough to her first. Put her first, and maybe I can get through this. Taking a deep breath as though retracing the words I felt momentarily tempered to stay, I turned back to face stage stairs, casting the thought aside and trying to collect myself. However, the longer we stand there, each second seeming to scrape by at an agonizing slow pace, the more I seem to get lost in this worst-case scenario world that my brain is conjuring up. The pictures become so vivid, they almost block out the room around me. And this, again, the blurriness. But I can feel the pressure of her arms still linked around mine. I can barely sense her, my whole consciousness getting sucked unwittingly into the horrific fantasy. This is the worst thing about anxiety. It sometimes becomes so powerful it can literally fool you into believing something that is nonsensical, inaccurate, not even happening. Though I'm doing everything in my power to snap out of this ruse, I'm starting to feel as though I'm losing the battle. I'm no longer in control of my breathing, and my heart pounds loudly, reverberates around my head like a drum. Numbly, I feel my own hand press against my chest, though I don't remember lifting it. As I feel what weak courage I had slipping away, I realize what a horrifying jolt of petrification that I'm not going to be able to stop what's beginning to happen. Panic attack. Sheesh, no, why is it happening now of all the times? I want to go through with this so much. I want to support Haruka as we try to finally make this dream come true after so many years of her suffering alone. I made a promise. The whole earth seems to lurk, and I stumble forward slightly, bracing my arm against my knee as I hunch over. The force causes me to tug on Haruka's arm, and though I'm currently staring hard at the ground, I feel her turn to face me, relinquishing me from her grip. Kakeru? Struggling to operate my own body, it takes me a considerable effort to wrench my head upwards to look at her. Sweat floods my skin as I take in her worried gaze, already filled with her own anxiety about impeding performance, and a powerful shock of self-loathing rushes through my system. How could I bring even more trouble to an already nerve-wracking moment? Doing my best to clear my throat, I emit an awful grunting sound as I try to force my mouth to form words, trying to tell her what's going on, or maybe to pointlessly reassure her that everything's okay. At this stage, I don't even know what to do. Gosh, I can't do it. I can't say a word. Feeling my legs begin to give way underneath me, I sink to a crouched position, cupping my shaking hands over my ears to block out the harsh ringing sound that seems to have suddenly arisen. However, after a moment of using my fingers as makeshift earplugs, I realize her breathing is coming from my ears themselves. Above me, Haruka grows restless, reaching out in front of her blindly to try to figure out what I'm doing, where I am, and why I'm hyperventilating so loudly. Haruka, what's happening? Blank, I can't even console her, even though she's really scared. I've lost all sentiment of reality, trapped in the quagmire of my terror, and gradually getting swallowed whole. Desperate, I seize every scrape of hope I have to break out of this, but as I'm mentally clawing for freedom, I hear a sound that pushes me over the edge. The audience applauses cheerfully in the auditorium, signaling that the group's performance is over, and my panic intensifies as I realize that there's now nothing standing between us and our moment. Our time is here, and it's now or never. As the weight of it all comes crashing down upon me, the last thing that I have left tethering me to rationally snaps, and my senses become overwhelmed with one single thought. Get out. With an abruptness so sudden I reel from it, my legs propel me upwards at high speed, shooting me to my feet, activated by the sheer hysteria of coursing through me. In the last few seconds I have before the act again, I steal a glance at Haruka. She's still visibly confused and alarmed, her arms outstretched as she searches for me. Now that I'm standing once more, putting me within reach, one of her hands clasps against my arms as she scrambles to grasp me, the material of my sleeve branching between her fingers. Kakeru? Staring with despair into her eyes, I beg myself to do anything, say anything, to connect with her and take her away her anguish. However, as I feel my body psyching itself up to move against my own will once more, all I could do is cry out a single damning thought inside my own head. Haruka, I am so blanking sorry. I stagger backwards, my sleeve ripping out of her grip, and wheel around in a crazed fashion. My wobbly legs start to pick up speed, carrying me away from the scene in the opposite direction. As I race through the room, past rows of unfamiliar onlookers and towards the door, my heart clenches as I hear Haruka's voice calling after me. She sounds more distraught than I've ever known her, filled with a tangible desperation. Haruka, no, please, don't you dare leave me now, not after everything we've been through. Her words cut me deeply, and in my phrases I feel tears begin to streak down to my cheeks as I grow in frustration and agony. I don't want to leave Haruka, I really don't, but I'm too far gone. Driven mad with an need for escape, I burst through the door and into the corridor, hating myself more and more with every step that I take, my mind filled with the echoes of Haruka's sorrowful wailing. Choking for breath, I feel my consciousness start to dim, exhausted and horribly wired simultaneously. My legs continue to take me down the hall. Okay, this is definitely a bad end. My chest hurting awfully at the severity of what has happened. I've ran away. I've left Haruka behind. The auditorium, the stage, my parents, everything I'd worked for and wanted. I let my fear get the better of me in the moment that Haruka needs me most, and I can never reverse it. As my vision fades to black, I'm left to suffer under the weight of one last torturous thought before I disappear. I've ruined everything. A month. It's been a month since my cataclysmic breakdown at the festival. My memory of certain parts of it is hazy, but I do know that Sensei had found me collapsed in the doorway of a public entrance to the auditorium, completely passed out from stress. My parents had been pulled from the audience to collect me, and I had been carried to the car, limp as a rag doll. They left me to recuperate. The next day Mama told me that Haruka had been far too distressed to perform after I fled, not even willing to attempt a solo version of Venus. Sensei had ended up shepherding her back to her own parents to go home in tears. Everything we dreamt of, all our hard work, and the trust that Haruka had put in me, I threw it all away, all because of a stupid mark on my face. Ever since that night, I've hid in my room, too ashamed to let anybody see me, and too depressed to move a muscle. All the progress that I'd made with being able to act normally around my parents have gone to blank. I regress completely back to my pure solitude. How can I look at them in the eye after having disappointed them, and everybody else, in such a terrible way? I can't. What's been hurting me most, though, is what I've done to Haruka. Sometime after midnight on the evening of my escape from the festival, she texted me the 3 last words that have caused me to crumble. I hate you. Oh, I needed you. She needed me to be by her side, and I betrayed her. I truly cannot forgive myself for that. Haruka was the most important person in my life, my best friend, my strongest ally, and the one who'd brought so much positivity into my world. To know that I've let her down and besmirched our bond so horribly is torture. Over the weeks, while ill self-esteem I started to rise up over the course of our friendship has not only dwindled, but become worse than ever. I've sunk into the darkest pit of dejection I've ever known, which seems to deepen with each passing day. In a way, I've let go of everything I thought I wanted, and everything that I was working towards. I don't want to take part in that music club anymore. I don't want to talk to my parents or go to class or see anybody. Oh, when September comes, I don't even want to return to school. I don't want to make the effort to improve myself anymore, because if I've proved anything, it's that it will never work. I'm Akane Kakeru, the freak-faced hopeless case that can never do anything right. How on earth did I ever convince myself that I was anything else? Haruka had refused to let things lie at first, texting me repeatedly and pleading with me to talk about what had happened, why I'd broken down, and why it led to this. I've been so disappointed in myself that I could barely even send her the odd scattered reply. She'd always be wonderful in my eyes, deserving of someone so much better than me. So in a way, there's no real point trying to redeem myself, to explain anything, even if she wants to understand. I'd rather she just move on to better things without me. But how can she, when she puts so much trust in you, so much faith, and so much reassurance? In the end, I resigned myself to the idea that I'll probably never see Haruka again. My will stay by her side, dashed by disfigurement that she still has no idea exists. Even now, I never even had the backbone to tell her. But I guess that's the way it's supposed to be for me. It's time for me to go back to the invisibility that I shouldn't have tried to leave behind. The only thing that's meant to me. This again. Barely interested in what it could be. Damn it. Is it Haruka again? Haruka, why does she keep trying to contact me? Doesn't she realize by now how pointless it is? I thumb over the message, my breath catching in my throat, slightly as I read what she sent me. I still believe in you. For a moment I feel my chest fluttering, and a great longing wells within me. To still have that faith after everything I've done. Will she overlook it all to continue where we left off? Would I be granted the joy of playing by her side again? As I stare intently at my screen, what I know to be the truth rings clearly in my mind, washing away my stupid hopes. No, we can never go back. Haruka's dream belongs to her and her alone. For her, there's still a light at the end of the tunnel. For me, it's an impossible dream. Tapping up my reply, I inhale a deep breath to state myself as I commit to throwing every last shred of optimism away. Hitting in, I condemn myself to the dark, gloomy, hopeless, Kakeru-less future that awaits me. I don't. But she does. She still believes in you, man, even if you don't. Even though their friendship never truly broke apart because Haruka still believed in him, he stopped believing in himself and her. I need to see this ending again. I need this to be the true ending for me. I know it says true ending, but go from that last bad ending for goodness sakes. It's so powerful of what words can do. And just the way it went out, like I feel like it would have been not as bad if Haruka didn't have faith in us, because from Kakeru's perspective, he felt like that everything around him just collapsed once again. But Haruka still believed in him. But he lost faith in himself and her. And I think that's what makes it even more sad. It's not the fact that they separated as friends, it's just that it was just severed like that. And the fact that Kakeru didn't want to go to school at all because it broke down to a point where he just wants to feel isolated. Completely isolated from the world. And breaking down the barriers that he had with his parents once, and now rebuilding those barriers. Like, I feel like that was just why that just hit me so bad. It's just that every single part of that journey felt so wonderful, and then that wonderfulness just collapsed because of fear, because of your trepidation of it all controlled your emotions. Haruka believed in Kakeru, and even after a whole month, she still believed in him, because he was her only friend. No man, that wasn't a mistake at all, even though I can kind of sympathise with what you're getting at when it comes to this kind of thing. Now this is the ending that brings joy back to me, rather than trepidation and fear, because I felt like the friendship between these two are so precious and so loving that I just wanted to end this, and I couldn't, and I thought I did by being truthful and honest, but in fact being truthful and honest was the thing that made their friendship even better, rather than giving in to fear and stuff like that. Like the moment, the emotional moment that Haruka received after Kakeru became more honest in saying that he has this condition on his face. But my hypothesis was that the reason why Kakeru became friends with Haruka is because of Haruka being blind, because Kakeru knows that Haruka can't see his condition, therefore that's what I hypothesized as, but I'm glad it didn't turn out that way, and I'm glad it was like this. So that, folks, is Venus Improbable Dream. I would have no idea if there's like some sort of secret ending that would occur, which involves the past choices about where you would want to go for lunch. Like, rather than going to the library, you would spend time together and stuff like that. Like, that might have a very, very small possibility of a secret outcome that happens because you spent either all of your time at the library or spend all of your time with Haruka in actually spend your whole time of lunch in the library or Haruka. Wait a minute, we're doing that with the same person, but spending lunchtime outside the library. So this game honestly is emotionally brilliant. Now my words at the moment aren't coherent. Even at the best of times my words aren't coherent with one another, but this game is just so endearing and touching that I feel personally that this is just one of my favourite visual novels. Not by a huge complex web of different theories, possibilities and theories that, I think I've already said theories, of different laws and stuff like that happen throughout, let's say, a sci-fi based universe where everything has like a chemical compound or a very, very difficult phrase or element to understand. It's just a story about two people, and what these two people have emotionally are very similar, but physically are very different. And I think that that's something to really inspire by, and also be inspired by in two different ways. Inspired by for the fact that you can achieve your dream no matter what you have on you. Like, if you want to play the flute while being blind, you can do that. If you can't play the flute because you're mute, or wait a minute, I'm being silly now. You can still breathe in and out despite being mute, but I think there would be certain parts in which can't be emphasized with emotion because you can't talk. I'm going to stop right there before I'm being even more wrong, but I feel like there might be some hindrance towards playing certain instruments if you are mute. But why am I saying this when there's nobody mute in this game? But I really loved this game. I love the build up. It wasn't just a bam, 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 bam. It didn't hit you with so many different surprises throughout the game that it became intense, too intense to be able to comprehend. But it built up the story in baby steps that allowed the player to organically absorb and be able to fathom out what may happen in the future, which is, on one plot point I was right, because pushing Haruka to be in a group performance alongside Kakeru was the bad thing to do, but just letting go of the subject was a good thing, while in the true ending that we saw, pushing the subject was actually a good thing because it released Kakeru's emotions out in a way in which Haruka didn't expect, but also the reaction of Haruka's to Kakeru was both surprising and also, as well, it turned out to be very, very enlightening. And I'm super glad that that was an ending in itself.
like, it could have been switched around as like the good ending was a true ending and the true ending was a good ending, something like that, where one of them was more of a development with other people, and one of them was a development with people in which Kakeru knew through the story, but also knew before the story, like mom and dad, for example. Because honestly, they would have to be born one day, and then get to know each other as a family, and just go about life. But of course, in Kakeru's case, his life started at a semi-high point, but it kept going down and down and down. And then meeting Haruka, that went back up again. And then depending on what side Kakeru... Well, how many times have I said Haruka when I meant to say Kakeru? But Kakeru's life was slowly going up when being acquainted to Haruka. But either one or two things can happen. It can... Well, actually, one of three things can happen. Number one, the friendship continues, but doesn't grow into a relationship. Number two, at any given... Four possibilities. Number one, the friendship can gradually grow, and that is the good ending. Number two, bad ending one. It goes up like that, and for Kakeru and Haruka, it simply goes down. Bad ending two. Kakeru's progression simply sinks down, but Haruka, I think, has not a sink down like that, but still a sink down nonetheless. Number four. Both Haruka and Kakeru's, not only did it increase gradually, but it also soared up their friendship and then into their relationship. Like, once you get past the point where you can't see my finger anymore, that is when, around the time in which Haruka just released herself and then kiss Kakeru, and then Kakeru kissed back as well. Like, that in itself was very endearing, and I love the story because there are endings which are bad and endings which are good, but each one has meaning behind it. And I personally really like this game. Like, if it can put you into tears, then you know that the developers put together a story which can captivate and touch the soul of a person, touch the heart in a way in which you'd think words wouldn't do, but words would do that. And when Haruka said to Kakeru, even after bad ending 2 and stuff like that, I still believe in you. I don't know why, but that was so powerful. Because, to be honest, Kakeru lost faith in himself completely, but Haruka didn't stop believing in him. And I don't know why that was just so powerful. But yeah, I think this outro has gone on for long enough. And I don't want to cry again, for goodness sakes, but this has been one of my most personal favourite experiences from a visual novel. And I don't think it will be a experience I'll ever forget. But thank you all so much for watching, folks, and see you all in the next video, whichever game it may be. But thank you all so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.